I lead a life of utter ordinariness. It seems I possess everything needed for a comfortable life in this world. Most importantly, I have a wife who loves and understands me by my side. I thought so, until recently. Until I caught my wife with one of the cool lawyers. At that moment, my routine world collapsed. I found myself having already drunk 2 glasses of Jack Daniel's whiskey. Faced with was the promise of the beginning of a disastrously bad weekend. And it wasn't even 3 p.m. on Friday yet. As a reporter working for a small newspaper in the Midwest, due to consecutive late-night shifts, I was allowed to take off on Friday afternoons, hoping to take a nice nap on my beloved lazy sofa. After running a few errands, I came home. However, when I arrived, I noticed 2 cars parked in my driveway. One belonged to my wife Tracy of 7 years. The other was unfamiliar to me, which struck me as unusual, since Tracy usually wouldn't be home during the day, considering her usual 8 to 5 work schedule. As an actuary for a medium-sized insurance company, the presence of the second car raised questions. But I still trusted our seemingly solid marriage. Opening the front door, I was greeted by a scene that shattered my world. Shattered my world. From upstairs, the unmistakable sounds of passionate intimacy echoed, indicating my assumptions about our relationship were about to be brutally overturned. The door was ajar, revealing the unexpected guests. They were busily engaged in fervor. This realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Damn it, I quickly ascended the carpeted stairs, 2 steps at a time. As I approached the bedroom, their voices became clearly audible. Is this what you want? Is this what your inadequate husband cannot provide? A man I did not recognize shouted. His words echoed throughout the house. Meanwhile, my wife's voice grew higher, indicating she was completely immersed in that moment. When I reached the bedroom door, I caught a glimpse of my stunning wife, lying beneath a man. He looked like a Packers offensive lineman, engaging in a fierce act of passionate intercourse. Her legs wrapped around his lower back. She pleaded for more. Give it to me straight. Don't hold back. Observing their intense connection, I couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between him and me. Though I always thought of myself as average, he looked well equipped, possibly 9 or 10 inches in length, and quite thick. I realized perhaps I hadn't satisfied her. As I realized my world was falling apart before me, I felt a wave of nausea. Excuse me, I finally said out loud, gathering the courage to step into the room. I took out my gym bag from the closet and started packing a few clothes, pretending to be unaffected by the scene unfolding before me, until Tracy noticed my presence and stopped their intimate activities. Oh, damn it, Simon. I'm really sorry you had to see this, she shouted from under Derek. We planned to tell you. Instead of you finding out like this. When were you planning to tell me, Tracy? Depending on the situation, this seemed to be more than just a one-time event. If you really cared, you could have taken the time to tell me before all this happened. Although Derek had stopped his actions with my wife, he was still inside her. She tried to peek at our conversation around him. Forget it, Tracy. I'll pack up some stuff and leave you. I'll come back for anything I might need in the next few days. I'll have my lawyer prepare the necessary documents. By the way, who is this guy with you? I asked angrily. Actually, it's quite amusing, she said with a laugh. Derek is my lawyer. He works at a well-known firm downtown. Perfect, I commented sarcastically. I didn't close the front door. As I left the house, I put my luggage into my Ford F-150 and drove straight to my favorite bar. Not the most promising start to the weekend. On a quiet weekday afternoon, like many bars, the Rusty Fork was sparsely populated. Even my usual bartender, Knew he didn't start his shift until 4. I sat in my usual spot, lost in thought. In hindsight, I should have expected this. In Tracy's recent work events, her colleagues could hardly conceal their contempt for me. By the end of the evening, she seemed to start agreeing with their criticisms of my job and my ability to support the lifestyle she expected. Tracy unhesitatingly mentioned her work income was twice mine. On the way home that night, we had a tense conversation. She attributed it to being a bit drunk. I was unsatisfied with that excuse. But as a person who doesn't hold grudges, I thought we would be fine in a few days. Or so I thought. However, now I'm in the bar. I know I should probably insure half of our funds in an account under my name. But I don't care at all now. My credit card is only in my name, allowing me to drown my sorrows tonight, then collapse in my truck. I'll find a place to stay tomorrow. Tracy and I met at a famous Midwestern university. We dated in our junior and senior years, and eventually got engaged. Our junior and senior years eventually got engaged. We understood. Unless I found a job at a major newspaper in a big city, she might earn more than me. However, we both agreed our income was joint, not separate. That's what I believed, until recently. I'm not sure how much her attitude change was influenced by her colleagues, but it was clear she had lost all respect for me. As for her love, well, today painfully made clear where I stand. Noel welcomed me at 4 p.m. A bit surprised at my early arrival, I briefly recounted my afternoon, handed him my pickup keys, instructing him to help me into the cab of the vehicle when I was ready, but not to return the keys until the next day when I woke up. "It's tough, man," he said in our conversation. Around 9 p.m. I was completely numb, including my limbs, when a state police officer walked into the bar. He casually approached Noel behind the bar, asking for a man named Simon Tilson. Present. Noel naturally pointed to me. The officer then approached me. He seemed good at this casual stroll, I noticed through my hazy mind, and regretfully informed me of some news. My wife and a man named Derek Biggs had been killed in a car accident about 3 hours ago, when a semi-truck ran a red light in town and hit Biggs' BMW 2 Series convertible. Authorities had been trying to find me for 3 hours, until an acquaintance directed them to my favorite bar. "Damn," I exclaimed. "Drinks are on me. There are higher powers at work." My statement triggered a round of cheers. Reginald Masters looked shocked, as if he had just seen a ghost. He seemed unprepared to face the joy that radiated from the new widower. "Mr. Tilson, I understand you must be in shock right now. But not shock, man, it's ecstasy," I said loudly in my drunken state. "The reason I'm so messed up is because I caught those two in bed this afternoon. I was planning to leave that woman. Let her be damned. This situation couldn't be better." Masters still looked disgusted, but I didn't care at all. We usually want relatives to confirm the identity of the deceased, just to be absolutely sure. But I don't believe Mr. Tilson will be of any help tonight. The host said to Noel, "Can you make sure someone reminds him to come to the morgue tomorrow?" Noel nodded in agreement. Despite being drunk, I understood what Masters told me. Even though I knew I would miss my wife once I sobered up, she had betrayed me and planned to replace me. So at that moment, my anger at Tracy outweighed any remaining love I had for her. The next morning, I woke up in the cab of the pickup, feeling stiff and sore. I probably looked terrible too. But I went back to the bar to get my keys, then drove to the hotel. However, I remembered what Masters said the night before. So instead, I drove back to my empty house, thinking about Tracy. in the 9 years we spent together, 7 of which were as husband and wife. I felt more melancholy about how things ended between us. I can't say I was really mourning, because even after I sobered up, I still felt a sense of satisfaction that she and her lover got what they deserved. I went home, took a quick shower, groomed myself, then went to the morgue to identify the bodies. Tracy's appearance was shocking. Being hit by a semi-truck had obviously taken a toll on her in the convertible. I asked to see the other body, Derek. He looked like Tracy. I hoped death wouldn't be as sudden in his case. After returning home, I knew I had to make 3 calls. 1 to my parents, 1 to Tracy's parents, and 1 to her sister Amy. Deep down, I felt a twinge of regret for her death. But every memory of her was overshadowed by the image of her and her lover. I found it hard to evoke any real sadness. So I decided to focus on my duties, conveying the facts, keeping emotions at a distance as much as possible. However, I couldn't help but feel sympathy for Ron and Cindy Jacobs, Tracy's parents, who were now mourning the loss of their daughter. I cared deeply for Ron and Cindy, almost as much as my own parents. I dreaded seeing them in pain. In this regard, the situation would be extremely challenging. I first called my parents to share the news. My mom, who is usually emotional, immediately started crying. My dad, on the other end of the phone, began asking for more details. I explained that Tracy was with Dick in the accident. "Who is Dick?" he asked directly. I anticipated this question, but hesitated before answering. "It might be Armis. He is Tracy's lawyer friend," I replied. "My father is very smart and perceptive. He doesn't miss a beat." "Why was she with her lawyer friend instead of with you?" he asked. "Because she was no longer with me, Dad. I caught her with Derek earlier that day, having sexual intercourse in our bed. I suspect it wasn't their first time. So I packed my bags and left. I don't know why they were in the car around 6. I assumed they were going out for dinner, considering the time." "Well, that's unfortunate, son. I'm sad to hear this," my dad replied. By this point, my mom had composed herself and joined the conversation again. She had heard enough of the situation. "Are you sure she was unfaithful to you, Simon? You don't want to spread rumors if you're not absolutely sure." I interjected, not very tactfully. "Mom, I caught them in the act. I've had my share of experiences over the years, so I know what I saw. Have you spoken to Ron and Cindy, Simon? And if not, what are you going to say to them?" my father inquired. "As little as possible, Dad. Unless they start interrogating me like you. I won't make anything up, if that's what you're asking. Then things might escalate, son. Remember, they are your in-laws. Give them the respect they deserve." "Yes, sir," I replied seriously. The conversation with Tracy's parents was strikingly similar to the one with my own. Although her mother was distressed, my father-in-law immediately realized that she was with another man when she died. In the car. When she should have been with me at that time. "Is there something you're hiding, Simon?" Ron's voice came through, with Skin in the background crying. At 6 p.m. on a Friday night. Tracy should have been with her husband. Yet she was in the car with another man. This text translates to Chinese as, "This doesn't make sense, son." Okay, I half shouted, half croaked into the phone. "Tracy was unfaithful to me. I caught her in bed a few hours ago with the guy who died with her. I packed some bags and left. I think they realized at that point there was nothing left to hide, and decided to go out together." "You found them together in your own home, in bed?" Ron sounded incredulous. He had a hard time believing the daughter he had just been told was dead. was also unfaithful to her husband, and died in the car with her lover. Yes, Ron, yes, now. I was so angry at her that I was almost relieved that they were both dead. That cheating woman and her lover got what they deserved. I knew I shouldn't have said the last sentence to her father. He started yelling at me over the phone, until I calmly and decisively intervened. He laughed at me. When she was with your daughter? She agreed. Yes, your daughter, my wife. I guess this spares me from divorcing her. She won't be buried in my family's cemetery when my time comes. And I certainly don't want to be near her. So just tell me the name of the funeral home your family uses. I'll make sure the bodies get there. I'll handle this part. And the financial side. You and Cindy will handle everything else. Like the viewing. I obviously won't be there, son. You can't just ignore her significance in your life. Ron said comfortingly. You spent nearly 10 years together. You can't make me believe that all these memories can simply vanish. It's possible, Dad, I replied. Our relationship ended the moment I caught her in our bedroom with the big man himself. Why should her death change my feelings? Maybe with time, you'll see things differently and regret not saying a proper goodbye to her. Ron almost whispered. I doubt it, I whispered. The funeral was held at Ron and Cindy's local church. The same church where Tracy and I exchanged vows. In front of God and our families. Vowing to love, honor, and cherish each other. The irony did not escape me. I considered attending for about 10 seconds. Then anger overwhelmed me. Have you ever thought about strangling a dead person? That's how I felt at that moment. Attending the funeral might have eased Tracy's parents' pain, but it would only have increased my anger. I sat in front of the computer, creating my first novel since the 8th grade. The character Direct Biggs encountered death. The character Tracy faced severe trials in life. I spent a whole 2 days writing, editing, and polishing. But for the first time in 6 months, I felt invigorated. I couldn't take revenge on Tracy in reality. But through this story, I could do it in my imagination. In the next 2 months, I continued to write 17 additional short stories. With changing elements, but maintaining a few consistent themes. The recurring death of the character Direct. And the inevitable punishment of Tracy. Completing each story. Putting it aside, then reading the final product. It was very satisfying. Then I stumbled upon Moby Dick. A physical book with a cover and binding pages. I can do it. I quietly confirmed to myself. Indeed, I did it. 6 months later, I gave birth to my first novel. An unexpected romance. Naturally, Derek ended his life in a rather cruel way. And Tracy faced humiliation again. I found it quite satisfying. And apparently, so did the publishers. The deal was not outstanding. But at least, I didn't have to bear the cost of self-publishing myself. I'm not sure how all this was arranged. But someone besides myself found value in the book, prompting the publisher to take on 2 additional printings. They asked for a sequel, doubling the monetary offer, so I agreed. This time it was a murder mystery. Derek encountered death. Tracy was imprisoned. With each completed book, I found solace. Strong sales reflected a collective identification with my emotions about Tracy and Derek. Following the success of the second book, another publisher pursued me, offering a 3-book contract. Compensation was doubled, although my existing wealth was not disclosed. I didn't need the money. So I gave the original company the chance to match the offer. They did it quickly. I remained loyal to them, delivering another 3 books over the next 18 months. Although the overall storyline remained the same, I introduced different scenes, even venturing into humor in the 3rd part. Each book resonated with readers. But most importantly, I found an increasingly strong sense of confidence. With each completed manuscript, it was my closest thing to satisfaction. Acknowledgement. The ongoing questions about her behavior are likely never to be realized. As the old saying goes, love your partner. I recently signed another 3-book contract with my publisher. This time my rates were doubled again. Interestingly, there was bigger news this time. Apparently, a film studio expressed interest in adapting at least 2 of my books into movies, offering a rather generous amount. They also asked me to participate in writing the script. I thought, why not? I agreed. Although I'm not particularly fond of Oprah Winfrey, her endorsement can make an author successful. I experienced this firsthand when she chose my 6th book as one of her monthly picks. It was exciting. It not only elevated my status as a successful author, but also brought recognition in the public. Naturally, the newfound fame had its downsides. Dealing with the occasional jerk trying to show me their indifference. That's okay, I'm not overly impressed with myself. But I won't tolerate disrespect. I can be as rude as anyone else. So there I was at my favorite bar. The same bar where the state police announced Tracy's death. Despite now being worth over $10 million, I still cherish the simpler pleasures in life. A good glass of wine, staying healthy, riding a bike, occasionally having a one-night stand with an attractive woman. I continue to live in my shabby apartment, not actively seeking lasting romantic connections. Some of the regulars at the bar may know about my writing success, but they mostly leave me alone, occasionally engaging in light chit-chat. I suspect half of them can't even read, ruling them out as potential fans. My favorite bartender understands my achievements. We occasionally discuss my work or ongoing projects. He is an upright man, clearly keeping my affairs private. Perhaps my generous $20 tip every time I visit played a role in his discretion. I was fully absorbed in the TV, immersed in the background music, and generally disconnected from life, when 2 women suddenly appeared next to me at the bar. Both very attractive, probably in their 30s like me, wearing jeans and casual tops. Not seeking to impress anyone, but one of them was familiar to me. The one farthest away. A sense of recognition began to emerge as I realized she started to talk. "Do you remember me, Mr. Tillerson?" she asked. Her friend leaned on the stool, giving us a clear view. At first, I didn't remember, but then I did. I was facing Ellie Biggs, the widow of Direct Biggs. We had only met once when the settlement was signed, when the trucking company compensated us for our spouse's infidelity. At that time, I confirmed to her, yes, her husband did have an affair with my wife. "Of course, I remember you, Mrs. Biggs," I replied. "But it took me a while. How are you?" "You look great, if I may say so," Ellie blushed. She exchanged a glance with her friend, then looked me in the eyes. "I'm much better than the last time I saw you. And honestly, I'm grateful to you," she admitted. Derek's death made me quite wealthy, but emotionally broken. Discovering his infidelity intensified the pain. I was both sad and angry. Especially, I never had the chance to confront him face to face. Then one day, Rachel handed me her first book here. She recognized the name on the cover from our previous encounter. At first, I skimmed through it, realizing you were writing about our worthless spouses. But you captivated me. The moment Derek's character encountered death, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. When Tracy got her comeuppance, I felt justice. For lack of a better word, it was the first time I felt a little calm since that terrible day. Since then, I have read every book you have written. It may sound silly, but they have helped me regain a sense of self-worth. I can't help but giggle like a schoolgirl every time Derek and Tracy get their just desserts. When I finish a piece, I feel the same feeling. I'm glad I could also help you. From how well they sell. It seems many others can sympathize with our experiences. Honestly, I never thought of pursuing writing as a career. I haven't written a novel since high school. Perhaps my settlement money and insurance fund ease the pressure, making the words flow more easily. As long as it brings me joy. The three of us moved to a table. I bought a few snack trays. We can eat and chat. We talked until midnight. When the ladies said they had to leave, I told them I haven't enjoyed such a pleasant evening in a long time, and asked if we could do it again sometime. How about next Friday evening? I suggest. But how about we start with a formal dinner that I'll treat you to, I suggest. They all agreed. Next Friday evening, I met them at my favorite Italian restaurant. Once again, we had a pleasant time. Both women were very attractive. Ellie had long blonde hair, blue eyes, and a curvy figure, while Rachel had long black hair and a more athletic build, reminiscent of a volleyball player, with long, toned legs, a firm buttocks, and perhaps a B-cup bust. Ellie was wearing a low-cut shirt, highlighting her C-cup bust, while Rachel chose a short, fitted dress, highlighting her best features. To be honest, I felt a bit awkward, because the two most charming women sitting at my table. Actually, that was a lie. I was completely intoxicated by their presence. We enjoyed a delicious meal and had pleasant conversation as I got to know them better. However, due to the restaurant being packed with a waiting list, I suggested we leave the table and go to a club about 10 minutes away for a drink. Rachel declined the invitation, so I agreed to drive Ellie home. After having drinks at Stella's bar, Ellie and I found ourselves in a half-full space. Conversation came effortlessly. My first question to her was, who was the winner between her or Rachel? Did the winner catch my attention, or the loser? It seems Ellie underestimated my understanding of women's psychology, because she blushed deeply. I am the winner, she stammered. Actually, I believe I am the winner here. But to be honest, the moment you two joined me, I felt like a winner. I think every man in the restaurant wanted to kill me, because I had the two most beautiful women all to myself. I noticed Ellie blushed again. Can I confide something to you? On the condition that you won't be angry? She looked at me, earnestly saying, furrowing her brow. I nodded cautiously, uncertain of the direction the conversation was taking. When I left the lawyer's office, after signing the settlement papers, I despised you. Even though I knew you weren't involved in Tracy and Daisy's affairs. You knew and I didn't. It made me feel inferior. Considering the circumstances, I didn't handle it well. Feeling you kept something from me. Like you were hiding something from me. I sensed and fully understood. Besides the idea of us being together after our cheating partners met. That's just ridiculous. Those things only happen on the Hallmark Channel. So I let you go, without saying goodbye. A year later, Rachel gave me this book. Ellie continued. It was clear you poured your heart into its pages. It was clear. It revolved around our spouses' affairs. Reading it was like a revelation. You understood everything. I underwent nearly a year of therapy. My therapist noticed a change in me immediately after I finished the book. So I gave it to him. At our next session, he said, quote me on this, forgive my French, but this guy is a fucking genius. If I really am a fucking genius, then why am I still living a modest life? With over 10 million in the bank. Ellie looked surprised. I know about your settlement and insurance money, but I didn't expect you to be this wealthy. Why do you still live like that? Because when you're alone and unwilling to trust anyone, Money loses its meaning. I replied. I am essentially a simple person without significant indulgences. If you consider my writing work, then I don't need to work. I have no one to share my life or wealth with. When I first expressed it, I realized how pathetic my situation was. I essentially live in a fantasy world, where I take revenge on Tracy and Daisy every few months. Of course, it's pleasant. But in reality, I'm not really living. I just exist. I sat by the table for an unknown amount of time, immersed in emptiness, unaware of sound or sensation, until a sudden vibration electrified my lips. It wasn't my lips, but Ellie's pressing against mine. Her tongue quickly intertwined with mine. I responded eagerly, like a thirsty person finding water in the desert. Our kiss lasted about 30 seconds. Before she pulled away, she instructed me to pay the bill and take her to my apartment. I complied as if waking from a trance. Because since Tracy passed away 4 years ago, I've had physical contact with several women, but I haven't truly made love since losing my wife. Ellie and I both knew that, after discussing our respective pasts. So I approached our intimacy with care and tenderness. Our kiss was profound. Our exploration was cautious and sensitive, as if we were sculpting sensations with our fingertips. Arising A. Similar to the admiration for Stevie Wonder. When we reached climax, I made sure. Adequate lubrication, then slowly united with her. Our lovemaking unfolded almost in slow motion. Every movement filled with sensation. I felt every contour of her body, especially when she tightly enveloped me. It was a transcendent experience, ending with a shared passionate release that consumed both of us. I instantly lost all perception of time and space. When I woke up, I found myself gently lying on top of Ellie, mostly supported by my trembling arms. I struggled to turn us over, face to face, as she gradually opened her eyes, still panting. Wow, she silently climbed on top of me. We lay quietly, exchanging playful glances like teenagers. Finally, she spoke. I understand everything you told me. All I can say is, if you let me in and trust me, I will prove I'm worthy of your trust. For the rest of our lives. Every day. If that was a marriage proposal, I don't accept. We didn't rush into marriage, after spending an incredible night together. But it marked the beginning of our journey together. About a year later, once we both felt we had resolved our personal issues, we got married. We moved to a spacious new house in the countryside, with 5 bedrooms. 1 for us, 4 for the children we hope to have. We even added a guest suite, anticipating frequent visitors. And I discovered a new ability to write about subjects beyond Tracy and direct revenge stories. Once Ellie entered my life, I found we needed fiction less and less. But I still write 1 or 2 stories a year. For fun. Also because of the joy of my publisher's accountants. The karma train has been good to me. I'm glad to bring more passengers along for the ride. Thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to today's story. If you like it, please consider liking and subscribing. If you haven't, please feel free to share your thoughts on the events below in the comments. Take care of yourself.